Okay, I think we're live.
Okay.
Yeah, let's see. Let me just make sure we're all good.
Awesome.
Hang on, double checking. Hi everyone, if you're on YouTube and watching us, give me a second. We're just kind of making sure everything is connected. If you are live with us right now, please go ahead and write something in our chat real quick, just so that I know we're all good. Let's see. Okay. Okay, well, hi everyone. My name is Marion. Oh, there you are. Hi everyone. Yay, I finally got the chat. Sorry, I kind of panicked there for a second because I was like, oh, where's everybody? Like, where's the chat? Hi everyone. Hello. Great, good to see you. I'm here with the wonderful Anne Kostecki. My name is
Hi.
Marian Pham. Hi, Anne. I am here with Etchr, doing a free live demonstration here with the wonderful and talented Anne.
Thank you.
Good to see you all in the chat here. If you have a question while we're doing her demonstration, please all caps question in the chat so that I can see it, and I will grab the your question and ask them to Anne when appropriate. Um, we do these free online demonstrations every Tuesday and Friday on our YouTube channel. So please subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to stay up to date and be alerted when we go live. Our next one is with Brett Bean on December 1st, 9 a.m. LA time, with Anya hosting. And please learn alongside him as he demonstrates how to create fun little monsters from imagination. So that is our next one. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so, and get ready for our twice a week free demonstrations that we're very excited to be able to offer now. So if you haven't already here with me and Anne, please share the link to this YouTube live with your artist friends so that we can have them join us. I also have a feedback form here that I'm going to copy and paste into the chat. We really appreciate if you can take the time to fill out this form. I'm just going to post it right here in the chat real quick. Um, and this will just let us know what else we can do to improve on these demonstrations. And we really appreciate any feedback that you can provide for us. And that'd be awesome if you guys can get a chance to fill that out during our demonstration. I'll post it again near the end if we when we get to that point, and take care of that. And so if you haven't seen already here, looking at Anne's workspace table, she's got some beautiful examples of her watercolor work on Etchr products. These are our postcards. Is that right, Anne?
Yeah, these are our postcards.
Great. Are they cold press or hot press?
I believe they're cold press, but
Or
I'm not
cold press.
sure.
Okay,
Here's the
great.
box.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and post that here. So if you're interested in doing some beautiful watercolor painting like Anne on our postcards, please check out the link in the chat. They look really cute, by the way. And really great for little gifts as well, I'm sure, to send somebody in the mail there, or even just as greeting cards, you know. Um, okay, and I believe that's all the housekeeping I need to do. So Anne, please let us know what we're doing today.
Hi, we're going to be doing a holiday wreath like this. Pretty similar. I don't know if it'll be exactly like this, but we're going to be using two colors, as I said, but actually, as you know, yellow and blue together make green. So any yellow, any blue you have will make this nice green wreath. And yeah, that's what we'll be doing. Watercolors on cold press paper. And I am going to be doing it on the postcard paper today.
Okay, perfect.
So, all right.
Great. Okay, so I got the video spotlighted here. If you guys are having trouble hearing me or Anne, or having trouble viewing the video, just let us know in the chat so I can double check and make sure that everything is going smoothly and that everything is going okay. But yeah, we'll have Anne go ahead and take it away with her postcards.
All right. So I have one of these postcards here, and it is cold pressed paper.
Okay,
I just on the back. And actually, for the first step, I'm going to show you using these Etchr palettes that I have. They're nice, heavy ceramic palettes, and they come in this really great carrying case. And I'm going to use the case to draw a circle with a pencil, which I've already done. All you really need is a simple mechanical pencil and a kneaded eraser. Just draw a quick circle on your paper, and then with your eraser, make sure it's as light as you can to see it, because watercolor is a transparent medium. So I always like to make my pencil lines as light as I possibly can so that like it doesn't bleed into the paint or anything like that. So once you have that drawn, if you have a Wreath reference image, I know I sent one along earlier. I'm not sure if.
Yeah, I was about to mention that. Yeah, the reference photo that Anne has provided, it is in our description in the YouTube video, so please check out the description. I've also pasted the reference photo in the chat, so go ahead and pull that up if you would like to paint along with.
Yeah. You don't have to follow it like strictly. I know like sometimes you see photos of like pine wreaths and they're like overwhelming with how detailed they are. And like that is something you don't have to worry about. We're just going to kind of look at it and kind of get a feel for the way the leaves look. And I'm putting some paint on my palette here. I'm going to start with the yellow. And when I do this 2-color process where it's just the yellows and the blues to make greens, I start with the warmest greens, which are mostly yellow, a little bit of blue, and then I move towards cooler as I finish the wreath. And that's because blue tends to really darken yellow. And like if you've ever drawn with markers before, and you know that yellow is the lightest one, and if you try to like lighten something that's already dark, it just doesn't work. So like that's why I usually start with the warmer greens, and then I get into the cooler ones. So I have this on the palette here, and I have a couple of other greens here that I've put on my really messy palette. See, they're kind of all very dirty. So I'm going to start fresh.
Okay.
These are the brushes I really like to use. They're Escoda Reserva. They're real sable hair. They work really well. And like normally I don't run around saying like you use this product, but I really recommend for watercolor brushes using real sable hair, because it's so like it has so much more snap, and you'll get really great results from it. So that's just me saying like if you can get watercolor brushes with real hair, like real sable hair, do it, because they're going to be really awesome. Okay, so here I've got cadmium yellow light, a Winsor & Newton paint, and a little bit of yellow ochre, and then this light, I think it's cerulean blue paint. And then you see here, I mix it in the middle and you get this really, really warm light green. And I kind of just start at the center. If you look at a wreath, you can kind of see that the direction of the leaves, I'm going to call them leaves. I guess I don't know if that's the correct term.
Pines, pine needles maybe. Yeah.
Fronds, they all kind of go in the same, like in one direction. So I kind of imagine it kind of a little bit like a chevron shape, like this, if that makes sense. So I have, let's see, what size brush do I have? I have a size 4 brush. That's pretty good. If you can go, I tend to work small, so I use like smaller brushes, like a size 6 will work pretty well too. And I just really lightly start to come out from the center. The pencil line is my center. And what I usually like to do when I do something like this is I make like 3 kinds of leaves. So there's one that's like this that comes out and it has little, I don't know if you can see this. Hopefully you can see this well. Like little pine, the little jagged, I don't know what to call these. Needles. Yeah. They're needles. Yes. They're pine needles. Yes, that's it.
They are pine needles.
Okay, I remember now. Great. Okay. Yeah. There's one like this where there's needles. And then there's one that I like to make that looks like this, where you just dab the brush lightly. And it kind of looks like small little leaves. And then there's just the thick to thin fronds that look kind of like this. You push harder on your brush and then you really let go so it looks kind of like just a thick, like brush stroke.
Yeah. Maybe
So
at one point you can bring the postcard up closer to your camera,
sure,
and then we can
yeah.
kind of see it up a little bit every
Let,
so often. Mm-hmm.
let me scoot this down a little bit. Sorry, hopefully that wasn't too jarring. Um, yeah, so one of the things I do when I do a wreath like this is I'll start with these warm greens and I'll kind of randomly sparse the leaves out or the pine needles out, because if you look at it, if you look at the image or if you look at a real wreath, it's kind of a layered look where it's kind of like dark over here and then lighter over here, and it kind of like it's layered. It's not like completely homogeneous all the way around. So it looks really nice if you kind of just randomly with your warm green kind of fill in some pine needles and some leaves. And you can start going along that way. And then the next step that I do, if I'm not jumping too far ahead, is once I have a lot of the warmer, yellower greens, I start adding more blue so that it gets cooler. It's a little too much paint. And then I start adding more of the cooler ones on top of it because that darkens it. And sometimes it even looks like kind of a bluish green, but I actually love the way that looks, to have like a bluish green, because then like your eye will complete it and it'll look green if it has like the layers of the yellow and the blue on there. So
yeah. Mm-hmm. Great. So we do have a question here real quick, Anne.
yeah.
So are you using the Cotman or the Winsor & Newton Professional series for your paint?
That's a great question. I have Cotman, actually.
Okay.
Yeah,
great.
These work great. So you can get these on Amazon, these giant tubes. I use them for when I teach classes, and then everyone shares paint, and it's more environmentally friendly.
Oh, is it? I did not
Yeah.
realize. Wow.
Well, if you get like the bigger tube, it'll like save you a little bit. So
Oh, right. Good point. Yeah. Getting the
yeah.
bigger tubes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And
Pro
it'll
tip,
last
everyone.
forever. Like this much paint will last a long time. So
Oh, yeah. For
don't be
real.
shy about using it. So yeah, so it'll look kind of like random like this. It'll look sparse as I go, but honestly, that's the trick too, is like I try to like keep my hand rotated so that it stays the same direction. Like when I paint like this. So I gotta tell you, sometimes I'm really slow and considerate, and like that's what I recommend if people want to paint realistically, or if they want to kind of emulate this style, is to just like, sometimes you have to take your time and just really just, it's relaxing to just kind of go into a meditative state and just concentrate on like some of this repetitious movement. And the other important thing I was going to say about watercolor is you want to make sure you leave plenty of white space, because if you've painted with watercolor before, you know that like you can always go darker, but you can never go lighter.
Right. That's the one thing for me. I do paint in watercolors and gouache too, and that is just the leaving the white is like the most trickiest part for me, because I have that tendency to just want to cover everything in paint.
Yes. I think if you've ever learned acrylic or oil, like that's kind of like the way you're taught, is like, well, you can always cover it up, right? So
yeah. Not so much with watercolor, because transparency and things. Yeah.
For sure. And sometimes I just have these little dots. I really like the way that they look on the final product. Like right here, you can get that kind of like dotted leaf.
I love it. So you are following your pencil outline. It's a little hard to see your pencil outline.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You zoom in.
Okay, perfect.
So there's the pencil line. And I go from the center out when I paint. So I'm going to be mixing in. I'm going to give you guys full disclosure here. I have this really bright green called Viridian that I'm using too, because it's really intense and it's hard to get that color just from mixing two colors. So I'm just going to add a little bit of it. It adds that like really bright green that I got in my first painting. So when I do these pine needles, it's like the best ones you do are the ones where you're like not really concentrating on it so much, and you're just kind of flicking your wrist like this, making lots of little like whipped pine needles.
Could you turn your hand sideways so that we could kind of see that flicking motion?
Let me try to do that. Like this.
Yeah, just like in the air, sorry not
Or
to
like
make it.
this.
Yeah.
Like just writing an N over and over again, but you're super light touch. It's
I
like
see.
if you have one of these brushes with a nice tip on it from the real sable hair, then it'll make the most fine brush stroke, and it'll look so good. Like, I swear, like sometimes people will be like looking at one of my paintings, they'll be like, oh my gosh, those brush strokes. I'm like, it's honestly the brush. Like
brush does all the work.
It makes a huge difference, like a nice brush versus like some of the ones that like you can even see it in the brush tip. I don't know if you can see this. Like they start to bend over time. Like if you have ones that are synthetic,
yeah,
they won't give you the same snap. But like these ones, when you look for ones with like a really fine point, and like you'll be able to get all of these details, and it'll be so much easier to do pine needles. Or like if you want to do Christmas, anything, Christmas trees, like I swear it's all in the brush. That's where if you have limited money to spend on art supplies, get good brushes.
That's right. Pay the money to get one at least good brush.
Yeah. So what else do I do? So yeah, I have 3 types of things. I think most of the leaves or needles I do are like these type of pine needles, and then I'll kind of randomly add in the like dotted leaves, and then at the end is when I start adding these bigger thick frond lines, and that'll just like to visually like create this motion of the leaves moving in one direction. Yeah. So once you have like a couple of layers, like you have like the gold and the greens and all these layers, what I'll start doing is if you look at your reference photo or if you look at real leaves, you'll notice that like there's going to be dark shadows where all the leaves are kind of layered on top of each other. So like I add like just a couple of random brush strokes, and that'll be like the shadow, if that makes sense, of where the pine needles are layered. And one more thing I forgot to mention, I always use paper towels to dry my brush. So I have like exact right amount of water. I don't know if I think most people use paper towels, but I just want to remind everyone that a paper towel is very helpful.
Yeah, for sure.
For this.
Yeah. I was going to mention that like I particularly have a tendency to use a lot of water, but your use of water here is very controlled because you're not like having it spill over into like a wash. You know what I'm saying?
No, yeah, I would say you got it. With realistic images, or if you want to kind of like emulate something like fine, like a pine needle, you'll have to use a very little water compared to like if you see watercolor paintings on like Pinterest or whatever, they're super loose, like flowers or even buildings I've seen really loose. That you're using a lot of water, and that gives you a very certain feeling and texture.
Yeah.
But for something like this, like that scratchy or textural quality of a pine needle, like it's important to kind of just have a little bit of water. And also it helps you maintain, like you said, control over where the paint's going.
Right.
You don't want it to be too unpredictable.
For real, yes.
Yeah. Like there's fun with a little bit of unpredictability, but like you don't want it
kind of. You want to rein that in for this part.
Yeah.
So are you almost like dry brushing, like just before actual dry brushing? Yeah.
Yeah. So actually what I do, and this, I don't know, probably a lot of you already know this, but in case you don't, I will pool a little bit of water in one of these wells so that you can get exactly the right amount. as opposed to like, normally I use a giant, I'm going to show you, jug of water.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of using that, like if you just put it in one of your wells, then you're going to like, you'll be able to lean it over and like just poke and get exactly what you need. And you can feel it too. Like if you're new to watercolor, you might not be able to feel how like the weight difference of the water on your brush, but like after a while, you'll start to feel like the minute difference between a little bit of water and a lot of water.
Right.
So
That's really fascinating.
yeah.
Great. So I'll take this opportunity here for everyone to know that that Anne will have a mini workshop available for you to participate in that will continue this botanical realist work with holiday kind of stuff. So I believe you're doing a Christmas tree, right? Next time?
Yeah, I can show you actually
Yeah.
what I'm gonna be doing. Where is it? It's a tree.
Oh, how
And
pretty.
where thank you. And with the where the little spots are, that's what's that stuff called? Masking fluid.
Mm,
We'll lift it up at the end and we're gonna put metallic paint on it. So
right. Great.
yeah.
Cool. So everyone, I posted that link in the chat. So please if you get a chance to take a minute to look at the webpage that we have for that. It is US 550 to attend her mini workshop, and she will continue to demonstrate how to do Christmas trees with metallic paints in the mix. It'll be about an hour and a half, and it's a maximum of 300 people. So we love seeing all of you at these mini workshops, and it'll be very similar to how we do our live demos, where you have a host handling questions and things like that, and we really invite you to paint along, of course. So yeah, please get a chance to take a look at her mini workshop there.
Yeah, that'll be great. I'm excited.
Yeah. So you're basically doing you're going all the way around in a circle, right, for your
Mm-hmm.
first layer for your wreath.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm randomly making it. I start with the warm colors on the bottom layer and I make sure to leave plenty of white,
Right.
and I gradually start adding blue into my yellow so that it becomes more green and
Mm-hmm.
darker. And then I kind of, maybe it's because I'm right-handed, I naturally tend to paint them this direction.
Mm-hmm.
What is this, clockwise, I guess? But the
Clockwise, yeah.
brush, they kind of come out at this angle. But there's no wrong way to do this. If you are left-handed or if you want them going the other direction, then that also looks really good. I'm sorry, this is actually an example where it's getting a little too dry. I don't know if you can see, but it's like
Yeah.
starting to be really, really dry, and I'm gonna have to go over it. And if you ever make a mistake and it's like too dry and you have to go over it a few times, that's okay. That can be like one of these shadowed areas, like the darker areas.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all about fixing mistakes or figuring out workarounds. Like, or if it's just there and it's there, like you can, it's fine. Like it's not the end of the world if there's like a little bit of a mistake.
We got a question here. What size brush are you using?
This one is a size 4. But you can certainly use a larger size, like a size 6. Anything with like a really fine point on the end
Mm-hmm.
is pretty key, I would say, for this.
It holds enough water, but it's because
Yeah.
of the fine point, you can get small
Yeah,
details
like
the way you're doing,
totally
right?
you can see like I'm getting like right in there.
Mm-hmm.
Just like letting the brush kind of do all the work, honestly.
Nice.
It's like a meditative thing where you can just kind of
Right.
draw the.
And how closely are you following the reference photo? I know we
I'm
provided
not
one
even
there in the
looking at it
chat.
right now
Uh-huh.
because I'm trying to do it from. So I like to make little challenges for myself. I'm trying to do it from memory. But
Oh.
I'm also trying to. I'm not necessarily from memory. Like I use the reference photo just so that I know like what kind of like the leaves look like,
Mm-hmm.
and I just imagine the rest from there, honestly. And I'm also trying to remember it because if I painted something once, I kind of have like a
Like a bank
memory
or a
of it, like
library. Yeah.
impressed memory of it. So I'm trying to
Yeah.
like see if I can make it like a little bit different. a little bit different, a little bit the same. So it's probably looking pretty different, but you know.
Right. Very nice.
Yeah. So this basically what this is I continue doing this randomly and then I fill it out. And then you'll notice too on my final product from earlier, this one isn't as like thick or wide as the reference photo. And that's
Right.
because you can kind of, if you want it thicker, you can just add more pine needles as you more and more layered in the background. And at this point I had done it a lot. So I was like, I
Right.
think I'm done.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
You know what you're
you
doing.
always reach that point at a painting where you're like, I haven't had enough. I can only do this for so long. And the other thing I recommend too is kind of just randomly sticking out a few in the other direction, because then that looks a little bit more natural rather than having it all like, just have them kind of like go like this or like this, like where they're not perfectly lined up the way that the other ones are. And some of them are going to be bigger than others too.
Right. So a question from me.
Yes.
Usually with like holiday wreaths, there's like a red accent element, like a bow or
Yes.
like holly berries or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So if one were to want to incorporate that into this style of painting that you're showing, would you draw it ahead of time or would you save that till the end? How would you go about that?
I would draw it ahead of time,
Okay.
mostly because you can figure out how to distribute them so that they're evenly throughout the wreath,
Mm-hmm.
rather than like, oh shoot, I forgot to put one here. You know,
Right.
all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a little easier to draw the leaves around it once you see it drawn. Then you're
Okay.
like, it's a lot easier to draw, like rather than just leaving big empty spaces and then figuring it out later, which is
Right.
sometimes I do things, it just never works out. It doesn't look as good.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just like, I recommend drawing them ahead of time. And
Sure. Nice. And would you paint like layers the way that you are doing it now with the red, or will you like save that till the end?
I would probably save it to the end. Although I do this really strange thing. I don't know if everybody else paints this way, but this is how I do it. Like
Yeah.
I'll do this once I have the greens out, but then like as I'm filling this in, I'll do a couple of red spots just to see how it looks and see if
Yeah,
the
yeah.
color works.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll go back and forth, back and forth. Like if I get sick of doing the red ones, I'll go back to the green ones and I'll, you know,
Right.
to keep myself interested.
Right.
You know.
Keep you stimulated, you know?
Yeah. So now that I've gotten kind of it like this, I start to like leave patches empty, and then I go and I thicken over a couple more this way so that I can get more of a random look. Because I would say, so I'm really critical. I like the way this looks, but I think it's a little too homogenous, if you know what I mean. Like it looks like the same all the way around. My husband, of course, was like, "Oh, it's great. I love the way it looks." He
Right.
loves it. So,
Yeah.
but I personally would like to have it more like this, where it's like a little bit more sparse and a little bit more unpredictable. Because
Right.
I think it's a little more visually interesting, but it's really up to your taste
Mm-hmm.
and what you like. I will tell everyone out there.
Yeah, it's funny. It's a good thing you brought that up because there was a question related to that. Because I brought up the hypothetical of a bow or holly berries. They're wondering if you will, if we have time, will you
Yeah,
be able to paint or draw a bow for us before you leave?
I can try to do that. Right now that it's like it's kind of bunched up. I do have an example of a bow.
Okay, yeah,
A wreath
I'm
with a
sure.
bow. You can go grab it. It's behind me.
Yeah.
This one is a little bit simpler than what we're doing, but
Nice.
this one I would say the key here is if you see these little white spots, I like took a really thin point of masking fluid and I just randomly spotted it because it was supposed to be snow, but it doesn't really, you can't really see it as snow, but at least it breaks it up a little bit. I did the same like technique with the pine needles, kind of layering. I started with the warm ones, then I did the cool ones. And in the larger spots, I drew like these brown, like dappled pine cones, and then I put some red at the end randomly for holly berries. And then I left this blank so that I could add, it's a little bit more of a loose bow. So I have this example I can share too if anybody wants to take a look at it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everyone who's here would love, are here knowing that they're going to see a lot of art. So whatever you get to show us, that'd be great.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think about how I want to do the bow.
So is this now kind of going into second layer, in your opinion?
Yeah. This is, I kind of jump, like I said, I kind of jump back and forth. I hate to admit it. I'm sorry if I'm like jumping around. But then I'll start adding, this is more of a cool-ish green, a little intense. I'll start adding these long fronds, leaves, pine needles, kind of just spreading them around so that I have like more of an idea of where it needs to go.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit more yellow since it's me mixing my paint. I'm just kind of
Cool. So while we're kind of getting started in the second layer here,
Sure.
just again mentioning Anne Kostecki's mini workshop. I'm going to post a bunch of links here real quick in the chat. Anne also did a podcast with Anya about a week ago or so. Is that right, Anne?
Yeah, it was. I actually it might have been a little bit earlier, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I'm going to post that there in case you guys would like to hear more about Anne's process and, kind of how, she goes about painting and art. She also has a print bundle as a product here through Etchr. So also that link is provided here. Digital prints, if I'm remembering right here. Yeah. To support our artists, to support our teachers. We're looking at different things, different ways to support all the artists that we have had here on our platform. So when you guys get a chance there in the chat, please go ahead and take a look at all those links that I posted. I'll probably have to format that a little bit better now that I'm looking at it, but yeah, and please let me know if there are any questions. Just remember to all caps question and ask the question in the chat so that I can easily see it and grab it and ask it to Anne here.
I love questions.
Beautiful. And then I just got a question. So Anne, would this technique also work on hot press?
Yes, it would. I happen to love hot press paper. I know it's like a controversial opinion for watercolor artists, because hot press paper is a little bit difficult and harder to work with. I would say hot press paper, probably use more dry brush.
More dry brush.
I would say use more dry brush because you're going to have more unpredictability. If the paper's really smooth and you're just not like, unless you're super familiar with it, like with an arch hot press paper, it's like really, really like, I would say perfect for this technique. I know that paper's kind of expensive. So yeah, I would just use a little bit less water. I realize I'm starting to run into the sides a little bit. I kind of got like a little overzealous with the
You got excited, Yeah,
I was like, Christmas. I actually started putting up my tree today.
Oh, there you go.
So,
yeah. You're getting festive.
Festive already. Although I know a lot of my friends and family members have already had their tree up for like a week.
Oh, wow.
Some people are really into it.
Yeah, as we know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More so than me.
Okay, so just to let you know the time, we're about 35 minutes in.
Okay.
So we'll kind of watch you continue on with the second layer, probably a third layer, depending if that's
I'm going to try my best. So
okay.
Like I said, we're going to try our best to fill this out.
Right.
But now I'm getting a lot darker here. So this is one of those things that you can totally continue without my instruction.
Yeah.
Once you're like whipping your hand like this with the size 4 brush, like you can kind of see now it's starting to. One of the things I do with the darker shadows is I'll follow the line of the previous layer like this, and I'll kind of just fill it in. If you can see, it'll make it look kind of like a shadow. So, and I'll create shadows behind this, just leaving a little bit of white to create like visual interest, just a little bit of white around it.
Yeah.
You can always fill it in if you think it's too sparse. You can always fill it in later, but once it's on there, it's on there.
Right. That's it. You gotta commit.
Yeah, like once it's on there, You can sometimes lift it out. If you take, I always take a clean brush, something like this,
Mm-hmm.
and get it wet and like kind of scrub it and try to lift it out with a paper towel.
Yeah.
But you know, it doesn't always work. And sometimes these blues that you mix in with these yellows to make green, sometimes these blues the pigment is so intense that it's like staining the paper.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always disappointed to find that out. Like, it's like, oh, this is one of those pigments that like stains really bad.
Yeah, yeah.
Not coming out.
Viridian or Phalos, yeah, they do that for
Yes.
sure. Yeah. I got a comment here. Hot press, in my experience, lifts too easily. Would you kind of agree with that statement, or?
So I would say sometimes, yeah, it does lift too easily because if you're really like scrubbing, it'll just shred and fall,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
really sad. And it's happened to me so many times. And one thing I would say, if you notice that it starts to shred, stop, take your paper towel and blot it really quickly, and then maybe take a hair dryer, dry it off, and see where it's at. Because once you start damaging the paper and start scrubbing it, it
Yeah.
can't really get put back. I mean, there's ways to kind of cover it up like a mistake. And
Right.
I've done like that where you have one more try usually and just try to get it right and then let it go. But that's why I always start really gently when I'm lifting on hot press paper. And like I take a brush like this that's like a really short bristles and I'll just kind of go like this, if that
Wipe it
makes
off.
one
Yeah.
direction, like I'm wiping something off my face
Yeah.
and then blotting it with a paper towel and then see what it looks like after that.
Right.
And honestly, most people hate this suggestion. Well, I apparently some people who are really particular about watercolor never ever use white.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
if you do something too dark and you really need it to be white, like it's not going to kill anybody to just use a little bit of white paint.
Right. Like white gouache or white
Yeah, like
paint.
white gouache. Or actually, I've been doing this for 16 years and I just figured this out from a colleague of mine. If
Yeah.
you use a white gel pen,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
that works really well too.
They do. Who's
Like a
gonna
white
know?
Posca pen, I think they're what they're called, like a paint pen. Like those work really well.
Yeah.
If you need to, like, just use the pen. It's fine. Like, you can always try again the next day.
Yeah.
So,
Cool. We got some lovely comments here. Exquisite greens and blues, Anne.
thank
Um,
you.
yeah, it's like you're building on the cool colors that you've already established. And
Yeah.
there was one thing I was going to ask, and now I finally remembered it. So I noticed that in your first layer, you're painting kind of like a mid value, if not maybe a lighter mid value, right?
Yeah.
And now that you're kind of going into your second layer, do you continue to use more pigment to get a darker value, or do you stay with the lighter mid value that you were using so that when you overlay it on your first layer, it becomes dark because of the transparency?
I would say I go back and forth a little bit.
Oh,
Like,
you? Okay.
on this particular thing, I do because I want to have like some dark spots and some mid spots. And like, I would say probably I use like the same level of value so that when they layer on top of each other, they appear darker. And then like as I darken it as needed, if that makes sense. Like sometimes
Yeah.
it's not like right here, like these are really close. And like
Yeah.
I want to distinguish it a little bit more. So I'll probably just add a little bit of dark under like between the pine needles. Now the other
Yeah.
thing I would say is I like having like little groups of dark leaves like randomly throughout rather than have the whole thing be dark because then it's going to look really homogeneous, as I said, really all the same. And I'd rather have just a little bit of difference. So I do it gradually. I like to have it like gradually build up.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get.
That's really interesting. You do kind of go back and forth between values, but then you're still building layers anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Like
Mhm.
I test the waters very carefully. It's like I'm dipping my toe in the water before I jump in because I swear to you, I've made so many mistakes. I've made all of the mistakes. People ask me that all the time. They're like, "What do you do when you make a mistake?" I'm like, "It happens all the time." Like I've been painting so long. I've made so many mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it, right?
Yeah, yeah. Like it's totally fine. Like you don't stress about it. You just keep
Gotta
going.
go with it, you know?
Yeah. Hmm.
Cool. So we're about 40 minutes in now.
Yeah, so
Just
we're getting
checking
somewhere.
in here.
Looks a little different, but it's
It's
like,
different, yeah.
yeah, you can see that like once you just keep going, you just keep adding more layers. Make sure to leave the white. And kind of, I feel like this one needs to be a little bit taller than the other one.
Uh, you know the that wreath that you were using as kind of a reference,
Mhm.
that the one that you're showing that's a little fuller. How many layers was that?
Oh, that one, if I was like to copy that one, it would probably be at least four,
Oh,
but
wow, 4 layers.
yeah,
Okay.
probably. Well, like it's hard to tell me, like it's hard to tell like when I've gone into the next layer. So I feel like right now this is probably two or three, but then I'll keep going back between two or three. And then like if I wanted to make something that looks exactly like this or even fuller than something like this,
Yeah.
then I'd probably give it step back after three layers for a day and then come back to it. And like once I've refreshed a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you try to do it all in one sitting, like you can do it, but like for me, I get a little bit like tunnel vision. I'm just like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. Like it's just it like I need a little bit of a break.
Right.
um,
Yeah, I can see how like because it's such a repetitive like shape and
yeah,
motion, you just kind of like zone out and you may or may not realize how carried away you might have gotten it.
yeah. Like I my goal is to see now I'm kind of running into this edge, which isn't that it's not that big of a deal. Like I'll just kind of push it
Yeah.
over the edge. Like I'm like, well, I don't want to make it much thicker than this. So like that's fine. That'll look good. Like
Yeah.
we like the way it looks. And then once I start adding like my third and fourth layer, then you'll start getting like this area where it's completely filled in, like there's no white left. So
Right.
I'm like, okay, so that's filled in. I don't want to fill in too many spaces. So I'll add the darkest value I can here to create like a visual interest there. So like now it's nice and dark. Randomly use some of these shadow colored leaves and just leave it like that. And I always say, like, look at your reference photo too, like, look at it really carefully and figure out how you want to do it. Like, you'll see that there's like the way that the shadows look are kind of jagged, and then you can just emulate that the way your leaves are going, the way that your pine needles are going, and then
Mhm.
that'll help it make it look more realistic. And remember, always paint with what your eye is telling you, not what your brain is telling you. Like your brain will tell you the sky is blue and that tree trunks are brown. But like,
Right.
look at it, the sky can be a million different colors.
Right.
So remember to just like look at it and like try to disconnect your brain from your eye so that your
Hmm.
eye can tell you what it needs to look like.
Right. That's excellent advice. Yeah.
Thank you. That's what I tell. I feel like people who've listened to me a while will say that I'm like a broken record because that's what I tell everybody. Like all my students, I'm like, you have to disconnect your brain and your eye. You have to just look at something and just look at it as it is.
Right. Yeah.
Not like,
And that's a habit you need to train, especially
yeah,
if you're kind of new to art. That's going to be a little bit tricky to figure out how to exactly do that
yeah.
unconsciously. Um, but yeah, it's possible.
It's possible. And like once you do that, here's the hard thing. Like whenever I try to do non-representational work or like work that's more abstract, it's really hard for me because I'm like, I only look at it like I'm very much like I want it to look realistic or like that's all I know, right? So
Yeah.
it's hard. Like I have a lot of respect for artists and creators who can make like their own style of something and
Yeah.
like it's whimsical and imaginative and
Hmm.
like it's like you see it and you recognize it immediately. So like um sometimes it's like hard for me to do that. Okay, so now
Yeah.
I'm gonna do some.
So I got some lovely comments here for you, and she agrees that there are no mistakes in watercolor. Happy accidents, as our beloved Bob Ross states constantly. Your wreath is looking gorgeous.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and this painting is turning out amazing. Another comment here. Thank you guys. This is lovely to hear. We are at 45 minutes in, so we'll
Okay,
probably have
great.
Anne maybe continue to paint for another 5 minutes or so, and then we'll do a Q&A at the end.
That sounds great.
Cool.
So you guys can continue doing it like this. Okay, where else do I want the
Oh, this is a great comment, Francis. Thanks for sending that in. Keeping in Anne's remark, a well-known artist said, "Paint what you see, not what you think you should see."
Yes, I love that.
There you go.
Yeah, it really helps.
We may not be able to get to the red bow. I know that was something that was brought up a little bit
Yeah,
earlier.
I can kind of
Um,
add it underneath
yeah,
really
but
quick.
your one painting that had the red bow was a really nice look to see
Yeah,
what you could do. Yeah.
show. Ta-da.
Yeah.
So the bow's a lot simpler than this.
Hmm.
And in case you weren't here earlier, I did a little bit of masking fluid. Then I filled in the green the way I did this.
Hmm.
And then in the white spots, I added pine cones and berries. And then at the end, I had this drawn already. So if
Mm.
you want to do a bow on your wreath, draw it first.
Draw it first.
Yeah, take your little circle, draw your circle, and then draw your bow. And then you can wing it for everything else.
There you go.
Yeah,
Very nice. Thank you, Anne.
thank you. All right. Should we try it? No. I don't think I left space for a bow today. I'm sorry, guys.
That's all right. No
I
worries.
can draw a bow on my tree on my mini workshop.
Oh, there you go. Hello, incentive to check out her mini workshop.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to see how Anne Kostecki does her red bow and maybe some other red accent details, check out her mini workshop and join us on that day that she will demonstrate for us. It'll be a little bit longer on December 11th, if I remember right.
Yeah. Is that a
That's
Friday?
right. Yep. So there's the link to her mini workshop. Check it out. She will be painting Christmas trees, I think. Yeah.
Yes. I'll show you the Christmas tree. Ta-da.
Right.
Christmas tree.
Love it.
Yeah.
We'll be introducing metallic paints, and then maybe at Anne's discretion, we can sneak in a red bow or
Oh,
something
I'll
at
do
that
the
point.
bow. You're hearing it now. I'll do the bow, guys.
There you go. And now it's out on the internet. There you
Yeah.
go. Anne
I'm
says she's
gonna
doing the bow.
live up to my promises. Okay. Well, yeah, I think this is going good.
Oh, we got Ramona saying she's already signed up to your mini workshop. There you go.
Awesome. Thank you, Ramona.
Yeah. And then Ruth here has a pretty good question here.
Mhm.
She's wondering why you didn't use the broadleaf that sort of looks like an olive leaf that you demonstrated at the beginning. If you were using that type of leaf throughout, would you paint those first?
I actually do those last. So that's a good question.
Ah,
The larger thick leaves I do last because those are kind of like my finishing touch to kind of fill it out. But you know what? It's not like you have to do it last. I would kind of just put a couple in there as like anchor leaves. And then you can kind of, I make those a little bit more sporadically.
mm-hmm,
And that's the one where you push down a little bit and then you kind of
mm-hmm.
flick your wrist. And
I
that one looked
see.
really good with the dry brush.
Ah, yeah, yeah, for sure.
So,
Really great question, Ruth. Thank you for that.
yeah, thank you for that. Oops, sorry. Sorry if I bump into the camera, guys.
No worries.
Yeah, so I think that, wow, I didn't think I would get that much done.
No, you did great. You did great, Anne.
Yeah, I really thought I wouldn't finish this.
No, we are at 50 minutes in, so
Awesome.
yeah,
Yeah,
we're good. We're doing good on time.
cool. Add just a couple more shadows. But yeah, I think that if we're good on time, like basically I would probably take a break at this point and then kind of add the dark spots
Mm,
like that, like a little bit of the shadow leaves. This one's I kind of dot, so
yeah, that's looking pretty full. It's looking
yeah,
pretty complete-ish looking, you know?
yeah, I'm happy with it.
Good.
So
That's important.
on the postcard paper, so you can send it as a Christmas card or holiday card to anybody. Okay,
Cool.
yeah, I
All
could do that
right.
further, so I'm gonna just stop now.
Okay, sure. Thank you,
Yeah,
Anne. That's
of
lovely.
course.
Some questions, comments here. The roost wreath is so lovely, so much so I can actually smell and touch it. Excellent rendition.
Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate
Yeah.
it.
And Heather, she came in a little bit later, and we may have already talked about this, but was this painted on A5 paper? It's just the postcard size, is it not?
Yeah, it is the postcard size. Let's see. I actually kept my ruler out just in case I needed to measure anything. So this is like 5 3/4 by 4 inches.
5 3/4 by 4 inches.
Yeah,
Hmm.
which I know that's like a smaller postcard size. These are more like yeah, I've seen postcards as big as like 5 by 7 or sometimes 6 by 9. So these are a little
Right.
bit on the smaller side. Yeah. So,
Cool. Yeah, so we'll leave it up to the chat here. Maybe
okay.
for the next 5 minutes, if you guys have any other questions for Anne,
Sure.
please write them down in the chat real quick, and we'll do a quick Q&A.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'll just look through my notes here to make sure I'm doing enough housekeeping. Um,
Here's something else I do to save paint. If you
oh,
can,
go
learned
ahead.
this in high school. So sometimes if you can like open up your paint tube so that you can see the paint starting to sink down, and you take
Yeah.
one of the brushes, if you want to save the paint, just scoop it out and just put it back in the bottle.
Hmm.
And that'll save a little bit more paint for you if you don't want to have, because like I have so much paint out right now. You can't see it all on the camera, but like I have this palette, I have this palette. So I
Yeah.
have a lot of paint out. So sometimes I'm just like, I need to put some of it back and save it. So yeah, little trick.
I love that you scoop back the paint in the tube because I also
Yeah.
get super like I don't want to waste paint, so I
Yeah.
don't
I mean, it's
squeeze out
expensive.
enough.
Yeah. And like I did that whenever I teach workshops too. Sometimes I get like people who don't use like X color or whatever. And like if it's not mixed with other colors, I'll just go in on their palettes and scoop it up and try to save it because, environmentally friendly too. Then you don't end up wasting a bunch of paint. And it won't get all over your sink when you're washing it out, which happens to me often.
Yeah. Oh, Francis has a great question here. Would you lay a light gray down first before the next layers? She saw it briefly on the Christmas tree that you just flashed.
Oh, light gray. Um, I don't use gray paint very often. I use a paint color called Payne's Gray, which is more like a black color. It's like a really pale black color.
Hmm.
Um, I use that sometimes, but I usually only use that like on really dark darks. For watercolor, I try to stick to mostly the primary colors. Like this one only has green, and in this middle, the trunk of the tree is actually burnt ochre or burnt umber, and like a little bit of yellow ochre are the only two colors on that one. So, and I actually, what I do for the trunk, you'll see in my mini workshop, but I'll draw the bottom first and then kind of snake it through the, but for this, I'll show you how I do this in the mini workshop, but it's a little bit more outside working in, if that
Mm,
makes sense.
yeah.
Like three.
Generally, I think kind of the overall consensus is that when we draw or paint something, you want to kind of start big and think of the big picture, and then kind of narrow down and refine and go smaller and smaller at that point.
Yeah,
Hmm.
you gotta, I did do the big shapes first. Let me move
Big
this up.
shapes first, right? Hmm.
I don't wanna, my hands are really dirty already, so I'm gonna kind of move this out of the way.
That's that's paint life.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, great question here from another user. What is your favorite aspect of watercolor, Anne?
My favorite. Um, honestly, I I love the vibrant colors for
Hmm.
one, and the textural quality. Um, it also seems to be, honestly, I kind of like the challenge of it because I've heard from other painters who use acrylic and oil that they're used to being able to just cover up the mistake and like keep going.
Right.
And like oil and acrylic have their own challenges too that are different than watercolor. But with watercolor, it's kind of like you have like one, maybe two shots to get it right.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I like that challenge because
Mm.
you know it makes it like it makes it feel better when you get it right. If that makes sense. You're like, yeah,
Yeah.
I did it.
Right.
That's like,
Because you took on a harder challenge and then you get that
yeah, you
satisfaction.
did the marathon instead of the 1 mile walk.
Right.
No, not that it's the same thing because I will tell you right now, I don't know how to paint in oil at all.
Hmm.
And I haven't done it since high school, and I'm sure I'm terrible at it. So like I have so much respect for people who can paint oil. Yeah, so this is my palette.
Great.
Add a little bit
Oh
more.
yeah, and that is our Etchr palette, everyone, if you were unsure
Yeah.
of. Let me go ahead and post that link here real quick.
I have the container for it. I don't. There it is. This is the container. This is what I actually use to trace the inside of my wreath.
You use the tin, right? Or the
Yeah, I
palette?
use the tin. This tin
Uh-huh.
is great. There's another palette in there too. So if you want to really get nitty gritty with your wreath, I have a size 000 brush
Oh.
that it's like got 5 hairs or something in it or fewer. Like, uh, you could really add really detailed pine needle like that.
Right.
Although that looks pretty good. That looks like the same as the 6.
Yeah.
So
I love I think you know, I've had a number of art teachers who would say things like, you know, use the biggest brush that you can to get the work done.
mhm.
So if your big fat brush has a nice fine tip, you can still get 000 details
Yeah,
in there,
that's
right?
true. Like
Yeah.
this, with watercolor, that's definitely true. You want to use the biggest brush that you can.
Yeah.
But for something like this, where you're not like using a lot of coverage,
Yeah.
where you're just painting like just some needles, pine needles, and some like just one brush will do. And like this size 4 is pretty big for what you want to do with this.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can see that like the
The
level of
difference
detail
there.
is the same. Like that's what a good brush will do for you. It'll give you all that level
Right.
of detail, and they're worth it. And they'll
Right.
last forever. Like if you take care of your brushes, which you got to store them horizontally so
Uh-huh.
that they dry properly. If you store them like this, then all the water drips down and gets into the ferrule.
Yeah.
And it ruins the wood and all that. So
Right. It makes the
store
ferrule
them a little.
loose.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome, Anne.
Thank you.
A couple questions here. You kind of already answered this one a little bit, but to reiterate, have you tried other paint media besides like your watercolor and oils that you mentioned?
Um, I have done a couple of acrylic pieces lately. I do a lot of pencil and pen and
Mm.
colored pencil work too. I got to tell you, colored pencil requires a lot of patience, and
Oh, yeah.
I don't have that much patience sometimes. Like I have a couple of colored pencil pieces that I really like that I spent a really long time on,
Hmm.
but I watercolor gives you more instant gratification. Like you can
Right.
get big patches of color done pretty quickly. You can get like a lot done and it looks really good. But like with colored pencil, I think you have to really build up layers and you have to really like know exactly where you want to put things. With acrylic too, I do like acrylic, but here's my problem with acrylic. Whenever you put the paint out on the palette, it dries out and you can't reuse it.
Right. Yeah.
So you got to work fast or keep constantly mixing your colors.
Yeah. Or keep it wet
So,
with like some kind of palette wetter or something. Yeah.
I wish I known that there's like tricks. You stick them in the freezer actually. That prevents the paint from drying too quickly. I
Oh,
if you stick a palette of acrylics in the freezer or oils too. My
yeah.
teacher in high school told me to just stick it in the freezer.
Yeah. I knew that trick with oils, but I didn't think you could do that with acrylics. So that's really
You can
interesting.
apparently do it with acrylics. So I
Wow.
have used acrylic. I've used chalk. I've actually made chalkboard signs with lettering a lot of times or art.
Yeah.
I do love doing chalkboard signs. That's really fun. That's also one of those things that you need a lot of patience and planning with, and sometimes math, because if you're doing a chalkboard sign and you do any kind of lettering, like you have to know exactly where everything's going to go.
Hmm.
If you wing it, it tends to look really sloppy
Yeah.
with with lettering. So,
Right.
and I've done it. I've done it both ways. I've winged it and it looked terrible, and I had to start over.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Okay. We'll take
yeah.
one last question here from
Yep.
a person. It's more about looking more at the Etchr palette. They were curious
Sure.
about how it actually fits in there. They are, you know, so how for you, since you've used the
Yeah.
palettes already, how's the fit? How's the convenience? You know?
Oh, I really like this. It's super nice. I like the bigger one. So if you mix a lot of colors, I think this one, the smaller one, I think this has like 37 wells on it.
Yeah.
Um, that looks awesome. So like this is good for if you especially if you're doing a lot of detail work and you have like a tiny brush like this,
Yeah.
or actually, you know what? I think the 4 and the 6 would fit in here fine. Yeah, like I would say like a 6 brush.
Yeah.
You can mix all these colors and you can have like your own palette. And this would be perfect. And this is easy to clean. I think it's ceramic.
Yeah. It's like a
Now it's
porcelain or a
ceramic
ceramic. Yeah.
or porcelain. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what it
Yeah.
is. I might like this one a little bit more than the smaller one though, because I have a
Mhm.
lot of room to. Because what I
Yeah.
do too is I'll start a color and then it'll kind of change as I look at
Right.
grading.
Yeah.
So like
So you prefer
this
the
one,
more
this one's good.
space. Yeah.
I think I prefer the bigger one, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've used palette paper, not so much with watercolor. I use it more with acrylic.
Yeah.
Palette paper is really great because then you can get like thousands of colors just on a sheet. And when
Hmm.
you're done, you just throw it away. But
Right.
like, I really like this. This is great.
Lovely.
Really nice.
Yeah. And you can stack those two in the same tin if you weren't aware of that.
Yeah. This
And
is
it's not
beautiful
too
for
snug.
photographing in Instagram. So like if you ever paint like this, you could.
Yeah. Instagrammable.
It's very Instagrammable. Yeah. Perfect.
Cool. Great. Okay, I think that does it. We're at the hour mark here. Thank you everyone for your wonderful questions and comments. This was very lovely.
Thank you.
Um, so again, I'm gonna post the mini workshop that Anne will be doing on December 11th. And it costs $5.50 US dollars.
Mhm.
And she will be demonstrating her watercolor technique that you see here with Christmas trees, introducing metallic paints, and she did say she will incorporate a red bow.
So
So
this photo will make parents.
yeah, that's gonna that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And we do have a hashtag that we'd like to see your work in. Hashtag Etchr Mini Workshop. Please tag us as well if you're posting any art that you are doing that is inspired by one of our teachers here that's made during the demos or during the mini workshops. And you will be in the drawing for a monthly US $50 art voucher to use at our store. So that's always a great incentive. And yeah, so please subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already done so. We do have our live demos on Tuesdays and Fridays every week. And if you haven't already filled out our feedback form, um, we would really appreciate if you can take maybe a minute or two to fill that out. It's just to help us improve our demos and to incorporate any of your feedback. And I believe that is it as far as housekeeping. And do you have anything else you'd like to say before we sign off here?
Thank you all so much. This was awesome. I hope you learned something and hope to see you on December 11th.
There we go. All right. Thanks, everyone. Please have a good rest of your night. Have a good
Thank
weekend.
you.
We will see you next time. Bye bye now.
Thank you. Yeah, this looks good. Awesome.